Bill says, do you guys use such large microphones as a subconscious compensation for anything? Well, I'll tell you here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over my audio to a different source, and you'll see why we use these nice microphones. Let me switch to... So now I'm going out through my Logitech webcam microphone, and so this is the one that, and it's still better than what's in a lot of computers, but you can hear the difference in the sound in my voice. It's just so spectacularly different. Now I'm going to switch back to the big one that's in front of my mouth. And now I'm back to the back to the big Electro voice. Isn't that awful? Isn't that terrible?
See, the thing is that they're not. This is not a big mic. This is a standard size mic, right? But because of the placement, I have it in the camera. It just looks big because it's center. That's all. It's not big.
Yeah. And it's compared to what we usually think of as computer microphones. People think, oh, you know, you can just use this little tiny one. It's going to sound okay. No, it's not. It's not going to sound good. Justin says, no helmet? Nope. Yeah, no helmet here. Philip says, so many denials. No, I'll tell you. I also, one of my favorite bumper stickers was on a really crappy car. He says, I drive a really crappy car to compensate for my large manhood. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's pretty good. All right, let's see what's going on here. Bill says, is there a safe, definitive way to know if a table has been accessed in the last so many days? Of course, there's the high, expensive ones like running a trace or capturing every query that runs. There's less overhead ones that involve looking at the plan cache. There's also, if you look at the index usage DMVs, there's a count of the last user query, or like the number of queries and the last date and time of the user queries. If you use SP Blitz index with mode equals 2, I believe it is, you may have to check the documentation. Mode equals 2 will dump out the contents of all of your indexes. Then for any given table, you can check to see when the last, it says quote-unquote user query was, but that's any query from end users, system queries, jobs, you know, Richie's application, whatever ran. Graham says, I know you guys are not big on formal education or certificates. That is true.
Well, he's not, or wherever I'm situated is not. I did college, dude. I had so much fun in college. I think there's a lot of learning that you need to do as an individual in college, not necessarily to get you ready for a technical job.
Mm-hmm. Degrees show that you learn, you know, that you're able to learn and pass tests and manage projects, so to speak, with your own education management project. What's your degree in?
I have a bachelor's of business administration in computer information systems.
Yeah, so Graham says, most companies have no idea how to get qualified candidates' degrees or certs, so you get those to get your resume to the top of the pile. He's going on and on and on. He says, what is required to get a senior DBA or database architect job? I have like 5 million things that want to come out of my mouth at once. Richie, what would you say is required for like a database architect job?
Experience in designing databases.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, you don't even really need to understand the tools. It helps, but understanding how to break down databases well, not even break databases, just break down requirements into a logical and then a physical model. That's what you really need to know. That's, you know, being able to talk to a user and understand this is what you really mean, not this is what you say, right? It's the stuff that you're not going to learn in college. It's just, you're not going to learn in any cert course. This is stuff that you have to go into projects and you have to build them yourself. Now, whether that's in a job or not, that's up to you. Probably having a job would be helpful, but it doesn't have to be. If you're doing open source type stuff, that's a project. You're doing work. It's the same deal.
Yeah. I'd say the same thing, that magic word that Richie started out with, experience, is the same thing I'd say for senior DBA working as well. Both in terms of database administration and architecture, you start doing not as your full-time job, but just as part of your job, and then you gradually make it a full-time part of your job. You can start as a developer, you can start as a systems administrator, what you find really interesting and segue your way into. The other flip I ask people is, think about as a business, what kind of risk are you going to run into if you hire a bad architect or a bad database administrator? It's really expensive, so you want someone who's made some of those mistakes before.
Yeah, exactly. And so that have someone else pay those mistakes so that you don't have to later. Right. I remember not getting. I had a 3-key primary key once. This was way early in my career, and sure enough, the requirements had changed where you needed to add another key to that concatenated key. And at that point, I'm like, maybe I should have done something differently. Maybe I should have used a composite key. And at that point, I learned, oh, I should have put composite keys on everything.
The users swear this will always be unique. They promise on the Bible or whatever it is they like to swear on.
Yeah. And you just have to understand that, yes, the user said that, and that's what they meant right now. But in a year, they have it to do something else, and they may or may not understand that. And so, being able to talk to a user, and then essentially you're jamming, you're just going back and forth. Well, what about this, and what about that? And so, what you really mean is this, and and you start whiteboarding. It's like, so what I'm understanding is that this is how you want it to work, and you're jamming back and forth, and how their work is, or how they see the system to do. Sometimes they have a good idea, and sometimes you don't, and you just have to kind of understand that you're not going to get a full picture from the users. Sometimes you have to kind of glue stuff together. It's like working for you, Brent.
Things never get better though. But no, yeah, it's a discussion back and forth. It really helps everybody flesh things out and go, oh yeah.
I remember having those discussions, all the way down from the secretaries and the admins, and then going all the way up to the CEO, right? And those conversations are wildly different. But being able to talk at every level of the organization, I think, makes a good architect. I mean, because you have to be able to say, hey, this system's got to work for your admin level as well as what the CEO plans for it to get done.
Yeah. Let's see here. Terminology question from John. John says, we have a 2008 R2 instance on a VM. We're considering upgrading to SQL 2016 or VNext, depending on when it comes out. I've heard that it's generally a bad idea to do an in-place upgrade, and what I should instead do is spin up a new Windows server and install SQL Server from scratch and then copy the data over. Is this a migration scenario then? Really, for me, every time I drop a new version of SQL Server in, it's a migration. I want to go copy all the data over first while I'm still in production on the old version, and let users run acceptance testing against the new one and go, is everybody comfortable with this? Do you like the way it performs? Am I comfortable in failing it over back and forth? How my scripts work? All of that before I then go live on it. And I don't mean let them test for 15 minutes. I mean give them that server and let them bang on it for weeks.
So I just saw a SQL intersections thing coming up, right? And it
had
Paul, Randall, Kim Tripp, and then Scott Guthrie. But my question is, does your normal run the DBA know who Scott Guthrie is?
I think intersections tends to be more of a jack of all trades type stuff.
Ah, okay.
So
they would know the red polo.
Yeah. I'm always surprised by, when I do sessions, it's usually 1/2 to 2/3 developers or sysadmins, depending on the angle of it.
So, okay. So this is most pure DBAs wouldn't attend, don't usually attend something like that, or is this, hey, this conference brings a lot of good people, and they kind of mix and match their experience to whatever they want?
Yeah, they'll go, I've seen a lot of companies bring a team of 3 or 4 people, like a DBA and 2 developers and an architect, and then they all go fan out during the day, and they hit different sessions, and then they regroups at lunch and after hours and go, all right, based on what we've learned, here's some things that we need to do. And I'll be accosted in hallways where I'll get a team of like 4 different people with 4 different job descriptions that have a design question, and then we just talk through the whole thing and sketch it out together and get everybody on the same page.
Well, I hope it's not about database architecture, because they're not asking the wrong dude, man.
Thankfully, no. And I never get the design questions either. Like, I'm always like, just go buy Lewis Davidson's book.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny is I recall the one year I went to Tech Ed, and I went with a colleague of mine, and from the time that I got on the plane till the time that I got to the next plane, which was like a 5-day, that Tech Ed used to be really long, I saw him once, and that was it. It was like, got off the plane, I'm like, see ya, guy, have a nice one. Boom, and I hit every party, I hit everything, and I just was totally networked out that one, where he just went to session to session to session. I'm like, session? I was like, who?
I think that's to some I don't know how much of an extent, but like with us when we go to Pass Summit, we all end up fanning out and going to different sessions all day, and then we are sometimes overlap at stuff like Speaker Idle. But
yeah, but typically I go, because I could always catch a session on freaking YouTube or buy the sessions or whatever, but the value is the people that are there, they're not going to be there when I get back home to my office. So interacting with as many people as possible, it's usually where I go for in a conference. Even at Code Camp, I went to one other session besides myself, and the rest I was sitting there jamming out. I met like a Microsoft guy. He happens to run like the MVP program here in the South region, and he just was. I'm like, "Are you presenting?" He's like, "No, I'm just here to, supporting my MVPs." I'm like, "MVPs need support? I mean, what the heck is that about? I mean, seriously?
they give support.
What kind of whiny crybaby MVPs you supporting, man?" But no, it was one of those encounters that I wouldn't have had if I was in a session.
Yeah,
just wouldn't have had it.
JH says, what are your thoughts of computer and data security in the future on hearing that the CIA, NSA, everybody has access to every computer? Are data security patches and encryption and passwords just a false sense of, he says reality, but he means security? I think we're kind of weird in that we grew up at the point where we really did have privacy. Growing up, we did dumb things. There was no Snapchat, there was no Facebook, no Instagram. And you could make mistakes as a kid and kind of, oh, I probably shouldn't go back and do that again. And today, I think that's less of a case. I think we're just the one generation of people that go, oh my God, this is terrifying. But when you talk to kids, they're like, yeah, I just Facebook everything, and I Instagram everything, and I Snapchat everything, and they're just not really as concerned about it.
Yeah. And seeing, there was something else that had come up with genetic testing and having your employer being allowed to genetic test and stuff like that. That horrifies me.
Yes.
Because because now my genetic makeup, is given to my employers, and who knows what is in there that they could use against me, right? And of course, once that data is out, you don't know where else it's going, right? I mean, it's behind someone. So, yeah, a lot of this stuff does scare me. But what's the alternative? Do nothing. And so, right. And so, why don't you just remove all your firewalls to your networks and keep it open?
Mm-hmm.
So we still have to do our due diligence and encrypt where we can. If that other person or entity can unencrypt it, then they can, right? I mean, but we still have to do our due diligence and do what we can.
Especially for today.
Yeah, and hopefully newer tools come out that will prevent from the decrypting of your data. But if they can, they can. So remove the door off your house, because anyone can go ahead and break it down.
And it's a matter of time. Like what people can encrypt with today, computers will be able to crack that in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Mm-hmm. So if you have any encrypted backups lying around, so to speak, if you're dropping them on Dropbox, Amazon S3, whatever, you have to know that it is a matter of time until that gets out. It's just a matter of time. It's a time bomb. And I think if you come into a different perspective that everything I leave out and around, sooner or later somebody's going to get it, I think that changes a little bit of the security discussion.
Yeah, what was the the one that was just verified that it was SHA-1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to
It
move
is
something
what
else.
it's a matter of time.
Yep.
Joshua asks a polarizing question. We got a whole bunch of questions in here. Webinar yesterday with Tim Radney, talking in part about fragmentation being a big deal. You guys are not fans, to say the least, of defragmenting. Can you recap why the differences in expert opinions and what's your stance again? I have this thing where I like to grab people by the shoulders and go, "What are you doing?" You know, just shake them, and sometimes, as Richie says, by the throat. Uh, I want you to have evidence of what your pain point is, and then tie to.
Oh, we lost you, Brent. We lost your audio. Nope, nothing. Nope, nada. Wow, I just have a face. He was going to say something really intriguing and interesting, and yet he fell away. Just like sometimes life just kind of falls away sometimes. Uh-oh. He has stepped away from the mic. Negatory. Negative. Well, speaking of Tim Radney, I know he does aquaponics or something. Let's see. Well, he does, is his fish and agriculture, or he just raises fish? I need to talk to him about that because I'm super interested in raising a fish. I think it's amazingly interesting, and mainly because I have anything pets. That's all I have, and that's all I'm raising. The cats and kids. No farms or anything like that. And there goes Brent. We've lost him forever. And unfortunately, you guys have me. All right, so let's see if there's something that I can talk about. And everybody's cracking up at me. Who let this guy on? He's just a developer. So if you have any developer questions, I'll be more than willing to answer them. Otherwise, GoToWebinar says audio not connected. Sorry, Brent. CA found him. Can he ask a replication question? You can. We probably won't ask. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Brent, for saving me. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for the audience. Thanks you too, because I was going to start talking about Node.js, and everything was going to go away.
Well, before I got caught by the fragmentation police, I want to make sure that you know what your pain point is and how you're tying the relief to that. I have never, count them, never seen a server where people are going, "Oh my God, performance is so horrible," and then defragmenting your indexes took you across the finish line in the end user's eyes. I've seen cases where it has cut I/O by some percent or cut some query execution time by some percent. But when you look at alternatives like tuning your indexes or tuning your queries or putting the right amount of RAM in the server, defragmentation is just usually shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. There are edge cases where it can make a difference. But what I would just say is, have you ever seen a demo that really conclusively proved fragmentation took a query from 30 seconds to 3 seconds? And if not, if it took it from 30 seconds to 23 seconds, do you think end users are happy with that? Tim's a genius. I really like him. Great guy. But these are the kinds of things that just make a little bit of difference there. Fragmentation, sure, it makes sense as a best practice preventative type thing. But when people are coming to us screaming for performance problems, just never seen fragmentation fix the problem. Let's see, next up, Kelly says, have you ever run into a deadlock with something called fcheck and cleanup cache temp table? I had SSMS IntelliSense recently get killed by it. I know IntelliSense is no big deal, but management was like, why did this happen? I would step back further and go, why was a deadlock a big deal? What was the query on the other end of the deadlock? Because there might be something, if it's IntelliSense, don't get me wrong, it's not great. But what is it that was locked on the other side? That's what I'd want to hear more about. Guillermo asks, have you guys ever used the sysname data type when writing T-SQL? And what did you use it for? Have you ever used it for anything?
Sysname?
Yeah.
No. No. Nope.
See, The only thing I've ever used it for is in like SP Blitz, Blitz Index, Blitz Cache, just because it cleanly, supposedly converts system name objects,
Yeah.
like if they change the system name type or something, and that's my extent of it. Justin says, can I ask a replication question? The answer is no. MM says, for a large reporting data mart application, what are the differences between SQL Server 2016 and 2014? Ooh, large data mart. Have there been any features that got you excited in SQL Server 2016, Richie?
Nope.
No. Oh. Whoa! Oh my God! It's Erik Darling.
It's another Brent Ozar.
It's another
I
Brent
didn't change my
Ozar.
name.
We don't have your audio in yet. You'll probably come in a sec. Nope, no audio there. All right. He says, "What? See, I was having the same problem earlier." So for the large reporting data mart, the one thing that's kind of nifty is column store index improvements. In 2012, you could have non-clustered column store, but they made the whole table read-only. In 2014, they added clustered column store. In 2016, they made all kinds of improvements to column store. So that would be the one that I'd be most interested in. Column store has two big benefits. One is it can make your select queries go faster, but the other one is it compresses the tables too. If you want to learn more about column store, go to columnstore.net. This is Nico Neugebauer's site that just focuses exclusively on his column store blog. It's pretty slick stuff. Next up, let's see here. MM says, a follow-up to the defrag. Shrinking a log file does not fragment the file, correct? That is correct, but what are you doing that for? I want to know more about why you're doing that. Erik, is your audio working yet? Nope, still isn't. Okay.
Potato!
I was going to ask him about about how to. So with that, if you do shrink the log file, just know that whenever it grows back out again, instant file initialization doesn't help you here. SQL Server pauses while the underlying storage is being written out with zeros, so to speak, to grow out the file. So make sure that you're solving a problem there. Bill says, we've cut way back on index defragging and reorging based on your article and have had no issues. If you read the comments on my blog post about fragmentation, that's some of the coolest stuff. Jeff Moden is an outspoken SQL Server guy in the community, has all kinds of polarizing opinions like me, and he said, when I read this blog post, it sounded like you were drinking bong water. So I did it just to prove you wrong. I turned off all my defragmentation jobs, and my database kept getting faster the longer I left it without defragging. It's like, so now I like bong water. There you go. Let's see here. John says, oh, have you guys heard how Angie, Doug, and Jessica are doing? I miss them. Yes, Angie is. I wish Angie had a blog. She does post on Instagram. If you search for her on Instagram, she's got an account over there, and she's been posting travels of her and her husband Leaf have been all over the place. Really cool place, and they have a really cool dog too. Doug is posting he has a website called SQL Theater where you can watch some of his newer tutorial videos. Super high production quality, always makes me laugh, really fun to watch.
I think this is working now.
I hear you!
There we go.
He's not just a pretty face anymore.
Second time's a charm, not just an eyebrow floating on the screen anymore.
Oh, funny. So I have a perfect timing for a question for you too as well. Guillermo says, do you have different update stats strategies for large tables? He says a large table is 1,000,000 rows. I'd switch a B in for that, but 1,000,000 rows as opposed to smaller tables.
You know, it really does depend on the frequency of data churn for them and how sensitive the data skew is. So, like, I've had giant tables where I turned off automatic updates, and I've put on the no recompute thing, because when I take a full scan of those statistics, I want those statistics left alone because I have some data sensitivity issues. So there are times when I do that, but most of the time I just let the update stats thing run, and I may run it more frequently if it's a large table, but I'm not going to, there's not too many dials and knobs that I'm going to mess with in there.
One person says that the only way our conferences would be more comical is if children ran in the background. That could
I can make
totally
that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, both Richie and Erik both have kids at their houses that could come in at any moment. And we talked about that in the company chat room. I said, look, if that ever happens, you just put them on your lap and you keep right on going. We're all about
Put them on your lap, break out the switch, and let it go.
Same thing you would do if the webcam wasn't on. You beat them senseless. All right, so let's see. Adam says, I'm tasked with loading data from one system with 2 versions. His metadata is different between the versions. Should he store the versions separately with views to join them or force them into one schema? Before we even answer it, I think we should probably just say, where should he go to learn more, or what resources should he talk to? Because it's not us. It might be Richie, because he likes this kind of thing, but yeah.
Maybe. But I don't write about it. So.
Yeah. Lewis Davidson would be the guy I would probably ask. If you search for Lewis Davidson SQL Server database modeling, he's got a blog out there on SQL blog and takes questions via email. Is there anybody else you would ask?
As far as the specific person goes, I don't know. This is, again, the slides up, so DBA.StackExchange might, as long as it's not too broad of a question, if you can get a decent amount of specifics in there without giving up the ghost on, sensitive company information, DBA.StackExchange is a great resource. There's lots of smart people read that who can give you good advice. There's always questions and advice about data modeling on there, normalization and stuff.
Typically, what I would do is I would just model it out and then throw some data, some real life data, maybe not production data, but something that would be representative, and then just start writing queries up against it, and then talking about with the data with the developers and or other DBAs, and just run some modeling tests yourself. Sometimes flexibility is first and foremost, which will then drive your model to what level of normalization you're trying to get. And sometimes speed is more important, that's when we start denormalizing. So I would say go ahead and model it out and start running tests, because that's when you really know when it hits the fan. When I've tried to be super clever with my model and I don't do the testing, that's when I come into trouble. And it's never trouble that right now, it's always trouble like 6 months to a year, where things start really blowing up. So I would definitely say test it out and model it out.
Oh, the actual data starts getting involved.
Yes.
Things go boom.
Yeah, and that takes time, right? And a lot of times when we're architecting, we don't have that kind of time to do that stuff. But that's when you just got to start begging your boss and saying, hey, look, if we figure this out now, it's going to be a lot cheaper rather than us figuring out in 6 months and having to rewrite all this code.
The other trouble with architecting is that you tend to only put perfect data in. You don't tend to put in weird edge cases or try to account for all the anomalies and bizarre stuff that users can enter in. Like, you can try to, but it's impossible. I mean, you kind of spend more time spinning wheels and trying to figure out what could be wrong and putting in that wrong data.
Yep.
So we're coming up in the end of the webcast, but there's 3 questions that I want to hit. 2 of them I'm just going to give one-line answers for. Mike says, I'm running SP Blitz index and I've got aggressive indexes, but there's no missing indexes. This is where you want to start playing around with SP Blitz cache, which will show long-running queries. You can sort by duration, for example, and then start digging in to see which indexes you would personally add. I say that because it's near and dear to my heart, because I'm teaching a tuning class in 2 weeks where we do that. Mandy says, do you recommend any advice or resources for getting started with distributed replay? Jonathan Cahias. Jonathan Cahias has, if I remember right, a course on it on Pluralsight, but if not, he's written about it in the past as well. The last one that we'll go hit, Ronnie asks, many questions are asked about how to get a DBA job, but what is required to work for Brent Ozar? What skill set do you look for? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and ask these guys. So first, Richie, if you had to hire for your own position, what skills would you look for and why? And I'm going to tape this because I'm going to replace you soon.
Good Lord. There's a certain bit of insanity that has to be involved working here. Being able to work on your own, and especially with my position, and being able to take minimal requirements and turn that into code, so that means a lot of imagination, right? So being able to take on concepts very quickly, and then being able to write requirements and then write code up against that. As well as an ability to learn very quickly with new things. We tend to gravitate towards a lot of new things right now, and the stuff that I'm writing now is stuff that I haven't touched like ever. Like 9 months ago, I had never touched Node, I never touched serverless, I never touched cloud, I never touched Postgres, I never touched all these different technologies that I'm using on a daily basis now. So so that would be it. It's not even about the technology stuff, because if you're quick in learning and you understand that stuff will come. So a lot of soft.
I point over in a general direction and I go, Richie, I want a serverless. Make it blue.
I'm like, what's serverless?
Erik, how about you?
I guess once you get past sort of like the SQL knowledge necessary, be on the phone with someone and get to their pain points and how to solve them. I would just, being comfortable talking to people, being able to talk and listen, and Google
simultaneously.
So just being comfortable with people, not being uncomfortable and turning into super, robot-y on the phone with people, where you just sort of recite stuff. You have to be able to be kind of loose and talk and sort of flexible, and learn as you go as well. Stuff like that. Just another important thing is just how would you spend your free time? If you get off the phone and the first thing you do is get up and walk away, I don't know if that's a good fit. There's a lot of stuff you have to do with it. In the company, there's stuff that I like to do is blogging and writing training materials and I don't know, writing in general,
Scripting.
Stuff that I enjoy doing, working on scripts, someone who's able and willing to do that would be who I would look for in replacement Erik.
For the record, Erik and I do completely different things. So we're
completely different set of expectations.
And I wouldn't, in terms of a skill set, I wouldn't aim for a specific skill set, because with small businesses, it changes so fast what you need. The next person that we would hire would probably be a customer success person who helps customers get up and running successfully. It just changes every year on what you look for and what you move into next. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us at this office hours, and we will see you guys next week. Adios.